Hey folks, Amanda here. Just a quick heads up that from time to time, the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast does include some adult language. So if you've got kids with you, you may just want to hold on to this episode to listen to a little later. Enjoy! Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. I'm Amanda Solman, and along with Mark Jewell, your host for this show and the creator of the Surviving to Thriving movement. Each week, we'll dive into the mindsets that keep us in survival mode and learn how to get on the path to a truly thriving life. If you're looking for a wake-up call and want some valuable tools to get there, you have come to the right place. After all, survival is dead. It's your time to thrive today. Now, let's head over to the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. My name is Amanda Solman, and I am your host this week. And I am joined by one of the newest coaches here at Mark Jewell Speaking and Training, Christina Gallant. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I know we are going to have a really awesome conversation today, but before we get into that, I'd love it if you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself, who you are, and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah. So, like I said, my name's Christina Gallant, and I am originally from the great state of Delaware. So my dad was in the Air Force, and that was where I was born. I grew up working on a small hog and cattle operation, went to University of Delaware, majored in agriculture, and I was state president in FFA. Met some of my very closest best friends through FFA, traveled to Spain and Portugal with them all around the country. Ended up working for FFA for a little while. Then life just happened and things changed, and I found myself in the fitness and health industry, where actually my agriculture background has served as such an asset when it comes to really understanding the nutrition aspect of what we're eating, why we're eating it, and then where it comes from, and being able to give an educated response to where our food comes from rather than what we watched on Netflix. So now I work for Lululemon Athletica. We're a fitness apparel business where I'm on the community outreach team. And then I have a team that I'm responsible for coaching and developing as they are designing their ultimate life. So through that, I was in the Philadelphia region. Now I am here in Nebraska, and I'm so excited to be working with Mark Jewell Speaking and Training as well, because you guys bring my background and my roots to where I currently am within health and fitness and life coaching. So just really excited.
Awesome. Philadelphia to Omaha is a little bit of a shift.
Yeah. I've never made more eye contact with people in my life. I moved to Omaha. Because in Philly, everyone's kind of like, down. And I lived in Wilmington, Delaware, so I was right outside of Philly. But still, it was that hustle and bustle of the East Coast, where a 2-hour commute was like, what are you complaining about? And here it's so funny because we're like, oh, it's so far. It's 30 minutes. And I'm like, guys, you have no idea.
Yeah, that's what Mark lives kind of in the downtown older area of Nebraska, and he always jokes when he has to go out to kind of the suburbs that it's like Timbuktu or something. It's like going to Mars, and it's like I laugh because I'm just like, it's like 20 minutes. Like it's not even that bad.
Not even that bad. Yeah.
Cool. So we are so glad to have you on our team. I know you've been to a few of our training events already, and we're going to get you jumping onto some coaching calls. So if folks are listening to this and they have heard your voice on the other end of the phone, now they get to hear you on the other end of the podcast. So I've been kind of looking for some new ideas and new people to talk to. And so I shot you a text message and was like, hey, Christina, you want to come on the podcast? You were very accommodating, so I appreciate that. But when I asked you kind of what you wanted to talk about, you introduced me to a new concept. So tell me a little bit, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, so what we're going to talk about today is the concept of BAM. So what the spelling of that is important is BAMN. And what that stands for is by any means necessary. So it's really taking the time to look at what is super important in your life and making it happen by any means necessary.
Awesome. Okay. So BAM, by any means necessary. Now that everyone's got the acronym and the words that go with it in their brain. So talk to me a little bit. Where has this concept been coming up for you, or why is it kind of top of mind?
Yeah, so the reason that it's been top of mind is the past few thriving leader conferences that I've been at, just listening to some of the barriers of why we're not living into our healthiest and best life, right? So, I'm busy with my family, or I've got work, or I've got all of these things, so I can't eat healthy. I don't have time to think about food. I just need to eat. I can't think about fitness because I'm booked from 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. All of these things that are coming up as reasons that I can't live the healthiest life for me. And when I listen to these shares, what comes up for me is, how are you going to serve and pour into all of these individuals that are counting on you, whether they be family or employees or teammates, if you can't pour into them with an empty cup, right? So if you're running on E, you cannot serve those that you're using actually as your excuses to why you can't do the other things.
Interesting. And what you pointed out to me when we were kind of communicating ahead of time was what this idea of scheduling in some of these activities the same way you would a business commitment. So talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so you are your own number one client. So you think about how you move mountains to make things happen for your best customer. You need to make sure that you're treating yourself the same way. And what that means is like, okay, I know that I need 30 minutes to meditate, or I know I need 30 minutes to sweat, whatever it is that you're lacking in your life at that moment. And maybe it's even a full hour that you're scheduling yourself throughout the day, or at the top of the day, the end of the day, to make sure that you're getting these things in. So a great example is what I'll do is I go through each week in my planner and I look at what I'm working. So obviously working for a retailer, my schedule changes week to week. So I don't have the luxury of consistency in that standpoint. And so what I have to do is say, okay, so here's when I'm expected to be at work. Here are the meetings I know I need to make happen this week to push whatever the next community experience or event is that we're doing. And then I layer in, okay, I want to lift 3 times a week, and I want to get cardio in 3 times a week. So what I'll look at is, okay, when can I schedule those in? So it's an appointment with myself. So I know that, sometimes it's a Tuesday night and I'm hitting the gym at 9. Or sometimes last night's a great example. I got part of my workout done at the gym, but I didn't get everything done that I wanted to do. So when I got home, I did squats and push-ups, and they're called functional progressions, which are just breathing exercises. I did those at home in the evening because that was when I was able to fit it in. And I'm better because of it. I'm living a healthier life because of it. I'm not calling out of work. There's so many benefits, and I'm more energized when I'm interacting with the people that I'm working with. So I'm a better coach because of it. So yeah, it's like the way you would treat your best client is how you should be treating yourself.
Absolutely. I think that's a good way to think of it in a lot of situations is like, what advice would you give someone else, right? So if someone you work with or your spouse or your kids were really stressed out or just feeling burnt out or drained or whatever, what advice would you give them, right? You'd probably tell them, hey, go for a walk. Hey, take a step back from that project, come back to it later. We would give them all this really good advice, and yet when it's ourselves, we rarely give ourselves that good advice at the same time.
Yeah, it's that practice what you preach.
Absolutely, yeah. We joke around here sometimes, we're really good at giving advice. We don't always take our own advice as well, or so well.
Sometimes that advice comes with a little bit of a gut, a guttural reaction or a little sting to the chest, and that's how crap, I really should be living into this more, and maybe I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So I know just the nature of working with lots of folks that there's probably some people listening to this who hear you say, okay, 30 minutes, an hour, and they're going, I don't have, I can't, 30 minutes, an hour, that's a lot. what might you say to them? Like, is it something where, okay, hey, start with 5 minutes. Like when you pull in, this is something I sometimes talk to my clients, like when you pull into the office parking lot, or, we work with some teachers, the school parking lot, wherever you're at, like before you get out of your vehicle, like literally just sit quietly for 5 minutes. Like, I'm not asking for 30, I'm not asking for an hour, I'm not asking for any crazy woo-woo meditation. Like, just take 5 minutes and chill out before you walk into whatever craziness you're going to be in. And most people can go, okay, yeah, I can do that. As long as I remember, I can do that. And so what advice do you have for people who may be like, okay, yes, I know I want to get to 30 minutes or I want to get to an hour of whatever I need, but like that seems like a lot from right now from when I'm not doing anything.
Yeah. So my first piece would be to ask them how much time they're spending on social media. Or how much time they're spending watching TV in reality, right? Even if that TV is just before you're going to bed, which it will be we can save that topic because you shouldn't have electronics in your bedroom, but I won't go into that. But anyway, so my first thing is just to kind of challenge them, to kind of myth bust a little bit of like where you actually do have time. And absolutely, if the first habit is just taking 5 minutes to just sit in your car before you go into work and kind of just decompress and do literally deep breathing where you're counting to 5 or 7 in and then 5 or 7 out. Even if you do that for 2 minutes, I think it's actually 2 minutes. I'm not going to quote this correctly, but there's been a study that said that, 2 to 4 minutes of deep breathing actually will serve your body the way a 20-minute nap would. So you're actually like rejuvenating yourself in a really powerful way in a really short amount of time because you've turned off your phone, turned off the radio, you don't have any distractions. And like for me, that's really great because I have ADD. So like 30-minute meditations actually freak me out because I'm like, I cannot imagine how to get my brain that focused for that long on nothing. So I like to do things in the smaller pieces, and you might find that there's something else that's therapeutic for you. So for me, weightlifting is the only time I can actually just completely clear my mind, and I'm not thinking about anything but like breathe and move. And that's meditation, right? So, but say you don't have access to the gym. Say you don't have access to weights, you don't have anything like that. If you're watching TV during commercials, get up and do air squats the entire commercial break. And if you're watching TV with your family, make them do it too. And if they look at you like you're crazy, just like, hey guys, this is how we're going to get through the show or this movie or whatever it is that we're watching. And then the next commercial break, do sit-ups. And then the next commercial breaks, do push-ups, and you can there's scaling, ways that you can scale it. So put your knees on the ground if you can't do push-ups for a full, 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not sure how long commercial breaks are, but then you're getting it in and you haven't completely disrupted your quote unquote routine in a way that's going to be a positive influence on those around you too. And it gets rid of the excuse of, I don't go to the gym, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to work out, like all those things. Everyone can do a squat. And for those of you listening, if you're like, no, I have really bad knees, find an ottoman that's slightly lower than your couch. Squat down to the ottoman. As soon as your butt touches, act like it's fire and shoot back up. And then you've just done a squat. It's as easy as that. And those are called box squats. And that's a great thing to do. When I had knee surgery, I did box squats for a solid 6 months before I did a full depth air squat, just to rehab my knee in the safest way.
I want to go back a little bit to something you said, because I think it's been working for several of our clients really well, and that's to get your family involved. So we have several people who had set some body health goals for themselves, who had not worked out, not eaten healthy for a long time, but that was something they really personally wanted to invest in. And for whatever reason, they decided to get their kids involved. So sometimes they would take their kids to the gym. It's funny. Sometimes I think it spouts out if they couldn't find a babysitter, so they took their kids to the gym with them. But then I've got one client who, she's doing I guess they have like a stationary bike at home. And so she's doing a contest with her son. And so whoever can go the longest or burn the most calories in 30 minutes or whatever, they're kind of doing a little competition between themselves to kind of reach some of those goals that they have. And so I think that point you said about getting your family involved and doing it with you can be such a motivating factor, because now instead of using our family as an excuse as to why we can't do something, now we're using them as a motivating factor and actually as a teammate.
Mm-hmm. And they're learning better, healthier ways to live earlier on, right? So many people when they first start in the fitness industry, so I'm a CrossFit coach as well, and I can't tell you how many people said, I wish I would have found CrossFit sooner. And these aren't competitive athletes that are going to the games. These are the dads that are dropping their kids off at the bus stop after their kids get picked up or coming to the 7 or 8 a.m. class. Like they are, they're normal. These aren't like people that are, I don't like to like compare myself to an NFL player, right? So I'm not going to, but these are normal people just like you and me. And what they always say is, I wish I would have found this sooner. I wish that I had this in my life sooner, because you do get such a quality of life when you're working out and you're being active. And think about how valuable it is now. If your kids are 7, 8, 9, 10, teenagers, whatever, they're getting out of that like state of lethargic game, video game playing, not going outside. Like, I don't want to sound like an old timer, like kids these days, but it's so true. Like getting kids moving soon, the earlier, the better always, and they don't have to have the pressure of being a star athlete at school. Mm-hmm. Like it's literally, hey, we're going to go for a jog around the neighborhood, or we're going to do, a push-up competition and see who can get the most push-ups over a span of a month. Or, hey, we're going to do 1,000 sit-ups this month, and you can break it down into however many a day that you want to do, but everyone in the family is going to get 1,000. And after that, here's what we'll do for fun to go celebrate that we did that kind of thing.
That's one of the coolest things when I go to my gym and work out is to see younger kids working out at the gym, and sometimes with their parents, sometimes they're teenagers and they're working out on their own. And then folks on the other end of the spectrum who are in their 70s, 80s working out, because those are things that I never saw growing up. Like I never saw older people being active, and I never really saw younger people being active unless you were in a sport. So I was in competitive gymnastics and competitive dance when I was younger, and I knew lots of people who played basketball, softball, football, whatever. So there was always this subset of people who were in sports, but like this idea of just a generic active lifestyle, like that just didn't exist in the community that I grew up in, or it's not something that I remember seeing. And so to see kind of this evolution of people seeing this as an important part of their life has been really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. And, I used to coach CrossFit kids, and what I can say is that the effort that the parents put in matched identically to the effort that the kids put in. So I had one athlete who was a challenge to coach that was an adult, and would constantly say like, oh, but this hurts, or this is wrong, or I can't do this. And what it was he had a fear of failing. So he figured if he made an excuse to not try at the beginning, then I wouldn't hold him capable. And what I think surprised him is that I was like, okay, well, then we're going to do it this way. And if that doesn't work, then we're going to do it this way. So as a coach, like always having that extra layer of, cool, you can't do the prescribed movement, so then we're going to scale it down to what you can do. I'm not going to let you just sit to the side. And what was so strange or ironic is that I also coached his son in CrossFit Kids, and it was an identical thing. Down to a basic functional movement of rowing, he would tell me why he couldn't do it. And so I think that as parents, that's so important to keep top of mind of, hey, I hear you when you tell me all the reasons that you can't go for a walk around the neighborhood because you're tired and all of these things. What would you say if you heard your child saying the same thing? And how would you feel in that moment? And it's like, hold yourself to the same expectation you hold your kids to by any means necessary. Like, make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's so interesting about that is it can be really helpful to do a reframing exercise like that, right? Because again, we don't think of ourselves as the important one. We think of everybody else as important, and we have all this great advice for them. What I've also found is that when you take it out of sometimes the mental aspects of health and put it into the truly, truly physical aspects, it also becomes easier to understand. So as an example, I have a client who, or had a client who was kind of having the same conversations you've been mentioning, right? Like, I don't have time for this. I'm busy. I can't. And so I was mentioning, some of our Thrive with 5 activities, which are, very simple 10 activities a day that really help expand your capacity. And she kind of gave me the look that a lot of our clients give us, which is the eye roll. Like, I don't have time for that. But what I brought back to her is she had told me early on in our relationship of coaching that she had knee surgery, hip surgery, something like a replacement, like 6 or 12 months earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And the minute I said, now tell me, before you got your surgery, when you couldn't walk because you needed this knee replacement or you needed this hip replacement, tell me how good you were to the people around you. Tell me how nice you were. Tell me how much you were able to get done. Tell me how long you were able to go every day. And you just see the look on her face of realization as to what I'm saying, right? So it's easier when we think about, going back to your analogy of you can't pour from an empty cup, right? It's easier for us to think about that in truly physical, like, if I'm in a lot of pain, I clearly cannot serve the people around me. But I don't think about it that way on a day-to-day basis when maybe I don't have just enough energy to go that extra hour for a workout, or I don't have the extra energy to play with my kids, right? We don't think about it when it's in those small doses until it gets so big that it can't be ignored. And I thought that was an interesting parallel, because it was like the light switch flip for that. She's like, oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she needed you to be a mirror for her, because she was just looking out a window and not necessarily looking back at herself.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah, so it's just interesting when you reframe some of those concepts, because we just don't think about things in certain ways all the time. So if we kind of parallel, give an analogy, it makes it easier to understand. So
yeah, definitely.
Cool. So by any means necessary, figure out how to get it done. So what are some tips and tricks that, as you've worked with folks, so obviously when you're kind of in the gym already, when you're in CrossFit or whatever, like, people have already taken an initial step. But I don't know, maybe you run into people in some of your other roles where maybe they haven't quite got that far yet. So what are some of the things you talk to people about as to how, if they look at you and say, okay, yeah, Christina, by any means necessary sounds real good, but like, what does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah, so I actually get that quite a bit, is the kind of like half eye roll, like, okay, but you have time to do it and I don't. You don't know my life and I do. And how I always respond to people is like, well, it was important enough for you to talk to me about. So if you're constantly like finding yourself Googling, quick fixes, I'm here to tell you there's no quick fix. There's not going to be a magic pill. There is not going to be a magic diet. There are nutritional resets that I absolutely recommend if you're really getting serious about it from a nutrition standpoint. Like Whole30 is a 30-day nutritional reset that I think is so wonderful for people with stomach issues and inflammation and things like that, but it's not sustainable. That's why it's called Whole30, not Whole Life, right? There is something called Whole Life Challenge, and it's based off of the principles of Whole30, but again, that's another podcast. So yes, if you want to do a 30-day challenge to kick it off, absolutely. But what I always talk to people about is like, okay, and what's it going to look like in 3 months? Because if you're not changing your nutrition or your exercise habits in a way that's going to be this, that you're going to be able to hold tight or hold strong with 3 months from now, then don't start it, because you're going to disappoint yourself. And then what that's going to do is to start a whole mental kind of like spiral back down the what is it, the Survivor's Guide to Thriving triangle. Like you're going to go right back down. So you want to look at that effort that it's going to take to break you forward, right? To move you forward and move you up. So some quick instant tips that I can come up with are maybe the first thing you start doing when that alarm goes off is that you do 10 push-ups. And then 2 weeks, you do 20. It's cold right now, so I'm not going to tell people like, you need to go run outside. It's cold. I'm not going to ever tell you that when it's freezing outside, and I'm the biggest wimp in cold weather. So if anyone wants coaching advice and they don't like going outside in the cold, I'm your girl. I will find you a million things that you can do indoors. And okay, so say push-ups. You're going to try those and you can't do them even with your knees on the floor. Push-ups are just too much. You can lean up against a wall and actually do the push-up movement against the wall. And you would surprise yourself at how hard that can be when you're doing them in a high repetition format. So it's just finding like what you can fit. So you start a habit, whether it's in the morning. I'm a nighttime person, so I would always rather work out at night. So that's what I do is if I can't get to the gym, then I make a little spot at home in a nice warm room, because again, it's cold outside, so I'm not going to be running. And the way I get my heart rate up is doing things like burpees. So that's down to the ground and then a full jump up. And I'll do 30 minutes, 10 burpees, 10 push-ups, 10 air squats. And if you can get through 30 minutes of 10 burpees, 10 air squats, and 10 push-ups without breaking a sweat, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. And I'm guaranteeing that you can do a couple more rounds because that will work your full body. You don't need any equipment. And all you need is 30 minutes. And maybe it starts as 10 minutes of it because you've never worked out before, and that's fine. And then 20 minutes, and then 30. And then you might be like, actually, I think it's time for me to join a gym. And then you can go to a gym and find a whole new world of exercises to do. But it's that commitment to starting and setting a reminder on your phone, if you're tied to your phone, to work out, like whatever your meeting time with yourself is.
And you're not theoretically saying meeting time with yourself. You're literally saying put it on your calendar as a meeting.
Yeah, I'm saying put it on your calendar as a meeting time. Or if you're a handwritten person, put it in your planner. Because I guarantee you'll surprise yourself. I like to check things off. I'm a list person. So if I don't check off my workout and I see that check has not been checked off a couple days in a row, then unless I'm sick or something is just like, an emergency happened or there's a big circumstance, then that gives me the opportunity to look at myself and say, like, not made myself a priority this week, and my health, and not even myself, but my health a priority this week. And let's look at all the way my other meetings went. Let's see how great I was in some of those. And there's always a correlation. If I am like crabby or not really showing up powerfully at work, 100% of the time I can go back in my planner and I can tell you I didn't cross off my workouts or whatever it was that was important. Maybe it was a yoga class, maybe it was a kickboxing class, like whatever it was that I needed that day for my fitness and my health. If I don't check it off, I'm not showing up powerfully in the other areas of my life.
Yeah, I think that's so true. I was a long time doubter of this whole like, oh, you'll have more energy. Cause I'm like, whatever. But I have probably, it's been about, it's almost 2 years now that I've really been trying to get into a routine of working out, and that exact same situation. Monday, I sat down at my computer at like 7:00 and started working right away and did not go to the gym before that. And I was in the most piss poor mood. Like I wasn't necessarily mad or angry. I just wasn't in a good mood. And so about 4:00, I was like, okay. So I went for a run, and I swear I wasn't probably a quarter mile from my house where I already felt like I was in a better mood just from that little amount of moving. And especially so many positions and jobs these days, you do literally sit at a computer all day. I mean, there are days where, I wear a Fitbit, like I won't hit 1,500, 2,000 steps which is really super low. Like I won't hit that in a day if I don't go to the gym or if I don't consciously create some of those opportunities to move. So I think that's a really important point. The other thing that you said that I want to just put a pin on again is this idea of priorities, right? So some of you have heard us say that, or you've probably heard somebody else say, show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities, right? And if I look at your calendar and all I see is work and family commitments, like I can tell that probably at some point in time, you're going to hit a capacity issue. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to be burnt out because there is no time in there for you. So it really is thinking about what are my priorities, because we all love to use the phrase, I don't have time for that, right? If I would challenge anybody listening to catch yourself every time you say, I don't have time for that, and replace it with, that's not a priority for me right now. So if I were to say, hey, why don't you, try and get some activity in this week so that you have more energy, so you feel better. Instead of saying, I don't have time, say, I don't have a priority or that's not a priority for me right now. And tell me how that makes you feel. Right? Mm-hmm. We talk about this in relationships too, which is, a different podcast, but it's the same thing when we tell people, hey, have you had a date night with your spouse this week or this month? And they say, yeah, we don't have time for that. We're just too busy with kids. Again, in that same situation, replace, I don't have time with that with, that's not a priority for me right now. Right? Because in that case, you're saying, yeah, having one-on-one quality time with my spouse, it's just not priority. Right? It doesn't feel very good. So start working that phrase of, I don't have time, out of your vocabulary, and replace it with, it's not a priority for me right now. Because if it feels okay to say it's not a priority, then maybe it truly isn't. But if it doesn't feel so good, that might be a hint that you need to do some shuffling.
Yeah, so true. And, just kind of building off of the relationship piece, is that's your number one ally in whatever changes that you're trying to make in your life. And they need to be completely enrolled in the changes you're trying to make, whether they are, changing the way they eat as well at home so that you're not eating a meal that's different than everyone else, or, something I've seen that's so great is I've seen couples that alternate, like, okay, I take this, quote unquote, like shift with the kids so that he can go to the gym at this time, and then she comes to class at this time, and they both have their communities in their class that are looking for them to be there. So they get that piece of independence as well. But there's also great couples that I see that come to class together, and they're high-fiving, and they're adorable, and they're doing partner workouts together and all of that kind of stuff. So it's like, you can choose with your partner what way that it fits best in your life. And maybe the activity you want to do is absolutely not what they want to do. Like, maybe it's a husband and wife duo, and he wants to go to a boxing gym and she wants to go to Pure Barre. That's totally fine. Just look at the times of classes and be like, okay, we're going to make this work in our schedule. I'll take the kids to school on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you will take them to school on Tuesday, Thursday, and then watch them Saturday morning. And that's when we'll go and get these classes in. And then on the days that we're, maybe Sunday, what we'll do is do a big family something. So maybe we'll go to the park, or maybe we'll do this, or we'll do something active. But, you have to build your tribe, and you have to build your support system. And my mom always said, you are the company you keep, right? So if my partner is not living a healthy life and not wanting to stay fit or even stay active, like, doesn't even matter if you don't need a six-pack to be fit. So let's say that too. Let's clear that right out of the gate. So maybe you're like, oh, you're fit because you have a six-pack. And I'm like, I guarantee you could probably run circles around them if you're working out in a functional way more than they are. But again, that's another podcast. All of this to say, if my boyfriend didn't want to live a healthy life, it would be really easy for me not to live a healthy life, because I'd be like, yeah, let's just go eat pizza and drink beer and have nachos. And those things are great too, but they shouldn't be an every night thing, right? Like, that should be your cheat night, or maybe it's your date night if that's what you guys want to do, whatever. But he holds me accountable for making sure that I'm getting my workouts in by just saying, how was your workout today? And if I don't have an answer for him, then he's kind of like, okay, well, what did you do instead? And then it's like, well, what did I do instead? Mm-hmm. And I get to ask him the same thing. Like, hey, and we talk about it now too. Like, we're talking about different ways of training, and I've learned things from him and he's learned things from me. And so it's helped our relationship grow. And so even if you've been married for 20 years, I guarantee you, if you both are starting new activities, whether it's the same one together or two different ones, it's going to give you a whole new world to talk about, a whole new conversation to have with each other and kind of re-spark a little bit of a flame because you're feeling better. So when you feel good, you look good. You guys know what comes next. So I'm not going to finish that sentence, but it's just nice, So treat your partner the way that you want them to treat you. Again, like how you said earlier, the advice you would give to them, give it to yourself, and then both of you should take it.
Good. I did want to back up a little bit because one of the things you said that I think is really important for folks to remember, especially if they find themselves around people who are really into fitness or really into nutrition, is, you said, you don't have to have a six pack to be active, right? I want to kind of reiterate that what quote unquote taking care of yourself looks like is going to be different for everyone, right? So, yes, there are some things we can agree on. I think we can all agree that, takeout pizza is probably not the healthiest meal in the world. I think we
delicious.
It's delicious, right? Yeah. I think we can all agree sitting on the couch does not count as a workout, right? Like there are things that we can agree on, right? Like lifting, as some people will joke, lifting the beer up to your mouth, that does not count as an arm workout for the day, right? But when we get past some of the silly things that we can all probably agree on, this is going to vary depending on what your goals are. I actually saw, Christina, somebody you follow on Instagram has this kind of triangle of what your goals are. And it's like, are you looking to feel better? Are you looking to look better? Or are you looking to kind of be stronger and perform from a real athletic standpoint? And there's things kind of in the middle of all of those three as well. But, how you, depending on what your goal is in any one of those three things, is going to dictate, different types of activities. So maybe you're like, well, I don't really care about losing weight and I don't want to compete. I just kind of want to build a habit where I'm being active regularly, right? So maybe your goal is to, go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, or your goal is to go for a walk every day, right? Maybe those are things that fit into just kind of this idea of creating habits. Or, in your case, right, you're looking to compete in contests, you're looking to really like go all the way. So that's going to look very different for you. One of the other things we hear a lot from folks is like, I just want to have more energy, right? I want to be able to come home at night and play with my kids and not be so tired that I don't have interest in playing with my kids, right? So that's going to have a different set of activities. I think we just, you can speak more to this, but we just need to be very careful. And I am absolutely guilty of it, as you and a lot of people well know, of, meeting somebody who is really doing this thing really well, or like at a really high level, and going like, man, I wish I was that, right? And not kind of taking into account the individuality of it. I think having individual goals and kind of being careful about judging yourself plays into that.
Absolutely. And what I want to call out is that one goal is not better or worse than the other. So if someone is wanting to compete and another person is just wanting to get off of their blood pressure medication, one goal is not better than the other, and your goals will change depending on where in life you are. So if you're a brand new mom, your focus will probably be more on, how do I get my energy back, knowing that I'm probably sleep deprived as a new mom, and like all of these things, and how do I do it in a really structurally sound way so that I'm not jumping into what is it when they're trying to get their body back, quote unquote, right? Like, what does that actually mean, number one? And like, what's more important, like again, having a six pack, or like being able to actually function all day long and into the night when your baby may not be sleeping, right? So it's just really getting clear on what your goals are and being gracious with yourself, knowing that it's going to change. And just depending on the season of life that you are in, and not one goal is not more important than the other, but the clarity that you can bring to the table of like, hey, I'm here because I want to look better. And when I say look better, this is physically how I want to look. Like, I want to see these changes in my body. That's a really individualized program. So that also means that takes more commitment in every angle, whether it's, nutrition, sleep, and then also in the gym. So there are just so many different ways that things can go. And, you know, sometimes the most fun people to coach are the ones that are like, I just want to have a good time. This is my me time. I'm going to work really hard, and I'm going to high five everybody at the end of this workout because I'm just excited that we all finish this. I'm not going to be looking at the person next to me like, I must destroy you kind of thing. So as a coach, sometimes I'm like, yes, that's like, I love that. You know, like I used to joke around my 7 a.m. class. We're all dads randomly. And they were so fun because they were serious about the workout. Like they wanted to make sure that they were it's a dad thing, right? Like wanting to make sure they got the money that they put in for the workout. So they always worked hard. They listened. They would try new things. They would like experiment. I mean, I taught a 49-year-old how to do a handstand push-up. And that it took a series of months and progressions, but it was just so cool because he was like, okay, I don't know if that's going to happen for me. And other people, you know, like a competitive CrossFitter, once we start failing in a workout, you just see it, like the switch get flipped and we're mad, you know, because we're competitive. It's that competitive spirit. And so it just really depends on like what your goal is. That 49-year-old, he just wanted to be active and try new things and be healthy for his family. And a competitive CrossFitter is thinking like, I want to go to regionals and I want to go to the games, and there is no one that's going to stand in my way, especially me. So yeah, the more clear that you are on your goals, and the fact that, and being gracious of your goal is your goal and it's special and it's not better or worse than the person standing next to you and what their goal is.
Cool. I have another question, and then I want to do just a little transition here. I know we're getting kind of a little close to our end time, but so we talked about kind of looping your spouse in and making sure, or your significant other or whoever that closest person is that lives with you most likely, in on some of those things. One of the other things I just want to have you talk about, especially because you do this, is, yes, we can go online, we can find tons of free workouts. There's things we can do at home, but sometimes for some of us, we really do need that added accountability of, in the fitness world, usually a personal trainer, and CrossFit, it's a class, or I guess lots of programs, a class where you have to show up at a certain time or whatever. Obviously most of the time on this podcast, we're talking about a coach and accountability in the sense of just general personal development, but in the health and fitness sector, like there are very specific things that you can hire a coach for or go sign up for a specific program for from an accountability standpoint. So I guess talk a little bit about, where do you see, what things do you identify where you go, hey, a personal trainer might be something that might help you get closer to where you want to be, or where you've really seen kind of that added accountability take someone further than they probably would have on their own?
Yeah. If you have the capacity to have a trainer or join a gym that does have classes that you can establish a routine class that you're showing up at, so that you have that community that's looking for you and texting you if you're not there. I always recommend that as a first step. If you have zero accountability to yourself, don't pay for an online coach. And the reason why is because you're probably you're going to end up losing money, right? Because you're going to pay for this online coach. They're going to do what they say they're going to do, and they're going to send you your workouts. And at the end of the day, you decide not to do it because you don't like to hold yourself accountable, then you're not going to do it. And they've already been paid. So it's really no skin off of their back if you choose to be out of integrity with what you're saying you're doing. I have a couple of nutrition clients who, it's science. Like if you're in a nutritional deficit, you are losing weight, right? It doesn't matter what if you're counting macros, whatever it is. And one of them, she was gaining weight. And I was just like, I need you to actually tell me what's going on. Because if you're eating if you're in this much of a deficit, then you should not be gaining weight. So you're either not working out and still eating this level, or you're not actually eating on plan and you're just saying that you are. And at the end of the day, she was like, you know what? Yeah, it took me 2 weeks of just not nagging, but kind of getting on her, like, hey, this is scientifically impossible. So I need you to tell me like what's actually going on. And then she like had a breakdown. She's like, my kid's going to college. I'm really upset. I keep eating by myself. And that, triggered a whole another conversation to have about emotional eating. But the biggest piece is if you can't hold yourself accountable, don't hire someone online, because they're not going to be able to physically see you every day to really make sure that you're living into what you're saying you're doing. And I also recognize that a lot of the people on these coaching calls like live in really remote areas, right? I mean, there's some people that live really far away. So if you don't, and they might live alone, like they might be single, and that's totally fine too. So it's like, okay, I'm single, I live in the middle of nowhere, and I'm going to have to work out by myself. And how in the hell am I going to hold myself accountable? And that's where a friend, someone that you can text like, hey, let's do this program together. And so you can talk to each other every day about here's the workout that we're doing. Let me know your time, or let me know how you worked. Like, let me know if you made any modifications, like building your army, finding that one person that you can say, like, ask them to hold you accountable. And if they care about you, even if they're not doing the workout with you, like I know if I called my mom and was like, Mom, I'm doing this workout program, I don't feel comfortable saying that I am going to want to work out every day. Can you just text me at this time every day and ask me if I worked out? Because I'm not going to lie to my mom, right? So maybe when I was 16, but not now, not at 30. So, it's just really, you have to want it. And again, it goes back to by any means necessary. Like, you have to build your army, find the support that you need. If you live by yourself and you don't have access to a gym, then find a program and find a friend or a family member that will say like, hey, did you do this today? Tell me about it. So you can't just be like, oh yeah, I did it, and then be out of integrity knowing that you didn't do it, kind of thing. Like, who can you not lie to? Ask that person to be your accountability buddy.
Every time you say that, I keep thinking about the new iPhone update that has the driving mode. And if you try to get online while you're driving, it says, are you driving right now? And if you are, then you have to lie and click, I'm not driving right now. And it's like,
right.
I can't lie to my phone. So I need to find somebody like that I can't lie to.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a game changer having like, so Drew and I were long distance for a long time. And now that we are living in the same place, it's, nice because he looks me in the eye and he's like, did you work out today? And I can't be like, oh yeah, if I didn't, because I'm looking at him in his eye, I'm going to tell him like, no, I didn't. And I was either tired, or I'll make an excuse. And then he'll say like, that sounds like an excuse to me. And then I'm like, yeah, you're right. It was an excuse. And I go at it the next day, like, no one's perfect. So it's like, okay, who's going to hold me accountable in a way that's still supportive too, right? Like, I don't want someone that's going to make me spiral into never wanting to work out because now I'm mad at it. So it's just really identifying what you need, the support you need, and asking for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we have been spending most of this conversation in the health, fitness, nutrition realm of the conversation. But I think, when we were talking earlier, kind of early on, this idea of by any means necessary and filling your cup also really applies to taking care of yourself in other ways. So early on, we mentioned meditation, we mentioned kind of just taking some quiet time for yourself. But these same things we've been talking about also apply to things like, finding a few minutes to read. Right. So we have one coworker who he makes it a point to read 10 pages of whatever book he's reading every day, because pretty much most books you read, 10 pages a day, you'll have a book done in a month. Right. And so like and it doesn't take very long for most people to read 10 pages. So like that, he makes time for himself. Like, that's one thing I really like, reading while I eat breakfast or listening to a podcast while I eat breakfast, because, I'm already doing this thing that is pretty easy to multitask with. So like, that's my time. And my husband knows if he talks to me during that time, he gets a little bit of a dirty look, because it's like that, this is my focus. But there are other things too, right? Like, they can be really, to most people, silly and superfluous. Like, I love going to get a massage or going to get a facial, right? Like, that's a really, maybe I know dudes like that too, but it sounds like a really girly thing to do, but like, that's the thing I do for me to take care of myself. And there have been times where it's like, I'm feeling very stressed, I need to go in a room, number one, where someone else is going to take care of me instead of me taking care of other people. But number two, where I literally have to disconnect from my phone, from like everything is shut off. So it's an hour in a quiet room where someone else is taking care of me. So like, if that's the thing you do, like, do that. So I mean, I don't know if you have other things that you do, but I was just thinking like this idea of by any means necessary goes beyond just exercise or just beyond food.
Oh, absolutely. You can really bring it into every single part of your life. And so something I like to do is I like to take pictures, or I like, this is going to make me sound kind of silly, but I like adult coloring books and just things that I can do with my hands, because when I'm doing it with my hands, that or I like cooking as well. So when I'm doing something with my hands, it means I'm not on my phone. Mm-hmm. And if I'm focused on like what it is that's happening or that I'm doing or what my end result is, then I'm not focused on like what's going on Facebook or some kind of distraction that I can easily create for myself. So yeah, you can really do it in any part of your life, but finding that one thing that's going to relax you, because it's nice sometimes when you're reading and all you're focused on is like the book and what's happening in the book, and you're not thinking about your to-do list or what you missed today or what might happen tomorrow or a conversation you've just completely made up in your head of how something's going to go, So it's definitely like taking the time for yourself in whatever capacity it is, whether it is just sitting on a pillow. Like I have one of my old bosses, she is she is like the meditation guru. Like she has a meditation pillow and a nice little part of her house that when I first walked in, I was like, this is so weird. Like you just sit there in that corner. And she was like, yeah, I do. And the sun comes in and she's like, and I just take it all in. And so it made me think about when I go hiking and I'm silent and I'm just taking it all in. That's exactly what she's doing, just in a different way. So yeah, just identifying like what it is for you. Is it reading? Is it coloring? Is it taking pictures? Is it cooking? Is it a massage? Which, and again, not comparing it. Like my meditation isn't better or worse than your meditation. And it's just my self-care is not better or worse than your self-care. As long as no one's doing anything destructive, right? Like please don't make your meditation going and sitting outside smoking a pack of cigarettes. Like don't do that. That's not, like make a healthy choice. But outside of that, like, yeah, it's just really finding what's going to take some pressure off of your day and give you the time to take pressure off of yourself, because what we're really good at is being hard on ourselves and always creating something more for ourselves to do. And we're never going to be able to live into expectations if we don't give ourselves the time to be free of expectations.
Yep, absolutely. That's a good way to wind this down. Yeah. I like that. So moral of the story, if you're feeling those red flags of I'm stressed, I'm burnt out, I feel like I don't have enough time for everything, or the other one we hear a lot is I'm just tired, right? And they say it like that too. I'm just tired.
Body everything.
Yeah, like my mind, my body, like everything is just exhausted. Like those are the red flags to watch out for, that there might be an opportunity for you to invest in yourself, whether that's through exercise, whether that's through food, whether that's through taking some quiet time or just stepping away and doing whatever it is that feels good to you. And truly putting it on the calendar as something that is a priority. And again, I know we've said it several times, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. So fill your cup so that you can help others fill theirs.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Christina, for coming on today. This has been an awesome conversation. We'll put Christina's, all of her good online stuff in the show notes in case you want to go track her down. And if you happen to be coming to one of our programs here in 2018, there's a good chance you might see her at one of them. So again, thanks, Christina, and we will chat more. Okay, bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Survivor's Guide to Thriving podcast. You can find the show notes and links to all the resources mentioned in this episode by heading over to markjeweltraining.com/podcast. And if you feel so inclined, we'd love it if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. That's what helps us move up in the charts so that more people can find us and start their surviving to thriving journey. See you next week.